Maybe I spoke too soon saying ACC Panic Room was dead, Lauren. This isn't a panic room. This is an O+G Overtime. Okay. This is a little That's O+G fine. Overtime because
I like overtimes.
So this isn't really, if you're wondering what the topic here is, we're still talking about App State, North Carolina, and the fact that every time NC State or UNC plays App State or ECU, and it's a close game, there's this outpouring of, we should never play this game from a group of Carolina fans and a group of State fans. I'm being very inclusive here. I don't want to make this just about UNC fans because there are State fans who don't want to do this.
Yeah, so for sure. And I in my tweet, which I got everyone upset.
Yeah, and that's why we're here.
I mentioned them both.
That's why we're here, because as I was walking out of this, I was coming back up here to lock up the studio. You were just done recording Young Gun with Dimitri, and you just said something along the lines of, well, I guess I'll go back to the cesspool of my mentions because I'm ruining college football.
Well, that's what I've been told by multiple App fans, that my attitude alone is responsible for why we are where we are today. When I was not saying that I endorse that line of, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that I am for less interesting games. I'm not. I have loved the UNC App games. Would I love to see more of them? Of course I would. But can you tell me how it makes sense for either of them to play those games in today's college football environment? What do they gain from that?
Sold out stadium.
Okay.
They get people fired up.
Does that cost make up for the cost of
what's the
being
cost?
embarrassed?
What's the cost? The cost of being embarrassed.
To have your fans check out on you after week 2?
They'll check out in a bad non-conference game to a P5 team. People will find excuses to check out on a team anytime they want. State fans just lost to Notre Dame and people are already ready to check out on Brennan Armstrong. So that's a big P5 match.
But I'm just saying. I
mean, I got plenty of Hey Joe questions about that.
And losing to in-state.
I'm already getting the condescending. I'm already getting the tongue-in-cheek sarcastic. So when do we give Dave Doran the lifetime contract? They just got beat by Notre Dame. That's that was a sold-out game. So I feel like this is, I think it's a byproduct of social media. And Gilio pointed this out to me today. It was sometimes you get a little too extremely online.
Of course.
And that's fair. And it doesn't matter who the opponent is. It's a group of fans that goes online and tries to argue their way or justify why something happened. My personal favorite is, well, North Carolina beat App State and they dropped in the poll. Well, they would have dropped in the poll if they played any game like that, because you reassess what that South Carolina game was like. And you start to think maybe, well, that was more about South Carolina, not necessarily about North Carolina, because they kind of reverted back to the mean of what we saw last year defensively. So there are ways to talk about this. But every time I see that lament, it comes off as whining to me. It's whining from the coaches. It's whining from the fans. And I ask the question, well, then who would you rather play? Who would you rather play?
You could play another P5.
What's that going to get?
Because I'm not going to argue that they should. Or
what's Minnesota going to? Because why
can't you play an in-state FCS team? It matters to them too.
What happens?
And not enough of them do it.
Come on, Lauren. You've been here long enough. You've seen North Carolina lose to FCS teams.
Not very often. Not lately.
But it happens. But it could happen. But it could happen.
I wouldn't. I don't. It's not nearly. Why are you comparing App to an FCS team?
But let's take this even further.
App can be what P5 teams are you confident would beat App every time besides Alabama, Georgia, and let's take it maybe further. Not even Texas.
What is the point?
How many?
What's the point of North Carolina playing NC State?
I mean, going forward, there may not be. I bet you they stop.
Would that be upsetting? If
it would be upsetting, but at the same time, what does it do for them? It doesn't do anything for them.
Again. It gets people engaged. It gets the people going, Lauren. We're sitting here still talking about this stuff well after the fact, rather than, they beat XY team and then we're moving on to the next thing. This is why people supposedly like college football. I'm not going to go full cesspool mentions on you, but we can't have it both ways. We can't sit here and lament what college football has become, cheer on further.
No,
getting away from, like you just mentioned it.
That's where everybody misunderstands me. I'm not cheering that on. I'm acknowledging what's here. That's all I am doing.
Should you be fighting for the opposite?
I've tried. You know how often I fought for G5 teams to be treated fairly by the College Football Playoff Committee? Mm-hmm. And what do they do year after year? What's the sample size they give us? What do they do to G5 teams?
Yeah, they always try to find the way out.
Exactly. What did they think of the Sun Belt?
Not very highly.
Even though they should.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to argue that. In fact, I agree. That's not going to make anybody think the same as me. Guess what? None of those people follow me, guys. Okay? None of those people give a damn what I think. They do not care. Okay, I promise you. And I was rallying for Boise. I've rallied for Cincinnati, even UCF.
Yeah.
Which was they were kind of annoying. But I still did because I'm like, respect them. Like, this is ridiculous. And I've rallied for Abbott too. Like, I've yelled at Carolina fans that act like they would win 2 games in a conference. That's ridiculous.
So you texted me yesterday.
Please, this is not fair.
And you said,
thought we were in a safe space.
It's all content now.
Oh God.
So anyway, Lauren texted me and she says to me, I wish I could argue with you about this app thing.
Why are you picking my worst point from this?
And it's a point you made. I'm sure did you not hit send to me and like, that was fire? You put your phone
No,
down, like,
I didn't.
That's fire.
I didn't. I was literally just mad. So I just was saying whatever.
Well, I think the word I used was feisty.
Talk about condescending. There's a good example, folks. That's actual condescension. It'd be condescending for me to lie to y'all and pretend that what I said was not true, because it is true.
You didn't like it when I called you feisty.
College football is that was, it was like 1.5 on the sexist meter, at least, maybe
Fair.
higher.
I'll put it in the sexist jar. I'll put $1 in there.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Very good.
At this point, you could probably like buy a new car.
No, you're not that bad.
I try. I really try.
You're mostly fine.
So and the reason why I said like, you were fired up about this stuff is that out of nowhere, you just start going in on Duke true road games.
That was not my best point analogy, but
it's like you're saying, I'm assuming you'll have an argument as to why Duke basketball should play true road games.
Because I think we both agree on one thing when it comes to Duke playing true road games. Why would they do a thing that would make it harder? I know what you're saying. It's Duke basketball. They won 5 titles, so they have every right to do what they want. But they are acting in their program's best interest and not doing something that they don't have to do because they don't have to do it.
There's two things. It's an apples and oranges comparison.
I know. I admit that. Yes.
And I think but I do think what you said leads to my larger point. And I find it odd that both subsections of Carolina fans and NC State fans act as though their football programs have accomplished anything.
I don't think that you're getting the opposite read on it.
And therefore, it doesn't do us any good. Well, what good is it doing you? Are you worried that App State's going to keep you out of that like just above the cut line bowl game? Is that what you're concerned with?
There's a big difference in the money between a lower tier bowl game and a higher tier. Like, that's reality in college football. You know that.
But it's also reality that it's not the good enough bowl game one way or the other.
It's still a big difference if you're going to like the Gasparilla Bowl versus the Mayo Bowl. Even the payoffs are way different. And what matters the most in football right now?
So when you bring up Duke basketball and paying money,
let's not be naive.
But if you pay, but money also matters in getting butts in seats.
I mean, but not as much as like getting invited to a super conference or whatever. Like
you're playing another G5 team, and they bring like, what does NC State get out of playing UConn?
Nothing. I agree with you.
So who would I rather play? Would I rather play UConn or an ECU? Would I rather play?
I mean, if you're choosing between the two, yes.
If you're a coach,
North
and you're trying
Carolina
to get a better
going
gauge,
to Georgia State or ODU made zero sense.
Give me nothing.
That was stupid. I get it. It makes more sense to play the G5s in your area. I hear what you are saying. I wish everybody wanted to play the good G5s in their area or beyond. I wish that were the case.
I don't know.
But a lot of teams avoid it when they know you have to know who you are, right? North Carolina and State fans, they know better than anyone actually who they really are.
Do they?
A lot of them do. That's the reason they say they don't want to play those games.
But I would rather...
Because they're not good enough to regularly win them. And it's always embarrassing when they lose them. They know that.
I would rather get this than Minnesota or UConn or whoever else.
What's wrong with Minnesota? They'll get more credit for beating them, even if App's better than them this year. It won't matter.
What's the crowd going to be like? What's the talking points going to be after that? I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
They'll probably care more about it on like post game shows. They'll talk more about it because you're playing a P5. They don't. I'm not.
And I bring up the Duke thing simply because Duke's in a position not just to call their shots and how they go about that stuff.
Of course, I understand that's a big difference.
It's also apples and oranges in how you get to win a championship in college basketball, which happens on neutral courts.
Correct.
Okay, so you have to get your team used to these types of big game environments on neutral courts. You're not going to have that kind of stuff going forward. So Duke gains more out of playing those games than playing the quote unquote true road game somewhere 100%. In college basketball.
We agree on that point. That's why I was surprised to see you make the other one, because you have to know who your program is and what they can do. and you have to act accordingly. Like the college football right now is steamrolling regional stuff. They are steamrolling all of the fun.
Yeah.
What choice do you have? Do you get on board with that and try to adapt to the new landscape that you're in? Or do you just be all idealistic and go, oh, I wish we should play these in-state games. It's really better for the whole state. What do they get out of it beyond a sold-out stadium? What do they get for winning? Just be honest, level with me. What does North Carolina and NC State get for winning those games?
That's a very existential question.
It's really not.
What is the point?
I mean,
what's the point? Honestly, what's the point? Like, who do you want to play then? If not these teams.
I mean, I think
because all I keep hearing is I don't want to play this team. Well, I don't want to play that team. Well, I don't want to play this team. Well, who do you want to play?
That's 2 teams out of a
no. I keep again taking it to its end logical point with okay, let's say Carolina and NC State leave the conference, or one leaves the other, and they don't want to play anymore, and they go the full Miami, Florida thing, or the Texas A&M. Okay, then what are we doing here? What's the point?
Well, good question, but that's where we're going. Like, you know that as well as anybody. And that's why I was like, what are you on about?
I guess what I talked about this today. I guess the part that infuriates me is that coaches spend pretty much all season long talking about hard work. We're a championship team. We're this, and that. Okay, well, if you're a true championship team, you got to be about that life. And you're telling me that you're worried about narratives.
If you're a true championship team, you're one of 3 teams in the United States.
Exactly.
So
since
you still want to try to make a playoff. How do you make a playoff if you're North Carolina? Do you have any chance of making a playoff if you lose to one of those teams?
Are you telling me?
It doesn't matter if you're good enough to make the playoff or you deserve it. When has that ever mattered in college football?
Okay. Well, look, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree.
Which part don't you agree on?
I don't agree with your entire premise of not playing these games.
I'm not saying I don't want them played.
We're not blaming them. No, I do blame them. It comes across as my feelings. That's all
it's
it is.
It's not your feelings.
It's all my feelings.
You have 12 of these a year. You can't afford to drop one to a team that people don't respect the way they should. You just can't. You can't. I'm sorry.
Whose
you
fault
can't.
Is that?
Of course, it's their fault. But that's why you don't put your team in that situation.
But aren't you perpetuating that?
How am I perpetuating it?
I'm not saying you, but aren't the fans who are lamenting this team doesn't get
any
respect?
How are they?
Because they're basically telling you that this game doesn't matter.
I mean,
so you're perpetuating this idea that these games don't matter by lamenting it in the first place.
So if the fans thought it mattered, like they think NC State and Carolina matters, I think we agree that they both think that game matters. Yes. Has that changed anyone's minds outside of here?
Who cares? Who cares?
Eventually, it doesn't matter where anybody is anymore. They're not going to be playing each other.
I don't really care about what other people think at this point because I know where this is going. It's going to super leagues, and I'm sorry, but
okay, you don't care, and I get it. Like we don't care.
I care about what
necessarily
happens here. I care about what happens here. I care about what gets the people going here. Do you know what I see engagement from? Do you know what gets people fired up? No, I know that gets people fired up. Do you know what will get clicks and things like that?
Yes, it's stuff.
These games.
Yeah.
These games.
I hear you.
So it's incongruent in the messaging.
Okay.
You can't sit here and tell me it doesn't matter, you don't care, blah, 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 except that I can see the numbers and see full damn well that people give a shit.
Around here, sure. But what does that do for North Carolina or NC State with their perception outside
You know
of here?
what hurts North Carolina more than anything else? A defense that can't get off the field.
Okay.
You know what hurts Carolina more?
Yeah, that they fall on their face every year, that they underperform, that they are disappointing.
That hurts Carolina more.
Let me ask you something. How has it hurt them? In what way will they be hurt by that moving forward?
In what sense?
Nationally speaking, and the way they're perceived outside of here. What will that do for them moving forward? Does it do anything? Does it have any real effect? No. What you just said that you're annoyed with them about, that they do all the time. They do all those things. We all have seen it.
Yeah.
We all have eyeballs.
Yes.
The national people do too. They've decided they don't care. The leagues that want North Carolina regardless over your more deserving team, they don't care. Yeah. That's what I was trying to tell everybody. Yes, I realize North Carolina face plants all the time. Yes, I realize the fact that App can beat them, that's the other thing too. Don't tell me I don't respect App and then tell me if North Carolina can't beat App, there's a problem with them. No, y'all are good enough to hang with any P5 team on a given day. Don't disrespect yourselves.
I agree with that.
Don't tell me there's a problem with North Carolina if they can't beat y'all regularly. Most of the teams can't beat y'all regularly. I really believe that, except for the teams that are like much better than everybody else, which North Carolina is not a member of that group, but you just try to be one of the best of the rest. And how do you get there? It's not by losing a game to a Sunbelt team. It's not a team that a lot of teams would lose outside of this area too. Like we saw Texas A&M do it. It's just, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I advocate for it. I'm just saying that we're in this era right now where the athletic departments are looking out for themselves and they are acting in their own self-interest, and they kind of have to. So I get it. That's all I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make sense for them. They won't get credit for winning.
I'm hungry. It's 12:25 now. You're throwing me off my lunch schedule.
Listen, I'm annoyed because
I'm
people
old now. I have my pattern here.
And I will admit to my app friends, and I still love you guys no matter what. But I will admit that my phrasing of my initial tweet was not the best, and it came across as very accidentally condescending on my part.
Oh, so who's being condescending now?
Well, I'm happy to admit that I was a touch. It was a total accident on my part, like legit. Yeah. But I read it back, and like somebody like rephrased it to me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no, that was a little. I didn't phrase that very well."
And as always, I appreciate you when you keep me in check.
I try.
You do a good job. All right, Panic Room's still dead. Later.